There's a kind of loneliness that nobody warns you about. It's not the kind that comes from being alone in a room. It's the kind that comes from being surrounded by people, nodding, laughing, participating in the conversation, and feeling completely invisible the entire time. You say the right things, you ask the right questions, but somewhere behind your eyes, there's a quiet voice running a parallel commentary the whole time. Did that come out weird? Why did they look away when you said that? Are you talking too much, too little? Do they actually want you here, or are they just being polite? Most people in your life would be genuinely surprised to know how loudly that voice speaks. Because from the outside, you seem fine, you seem social, you seem confident even, but the experience of being inside your own head during those moments is something close to exhausting. And the worst part is, you can't explain it to anyone without sounding dramatic. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain, and more importantly, here's how to stop being a prisoner of it. To understand social anxiety, you have to understand what your brain is fundamentally trying to do. The human brain is, at its core, a social survival machine. For hundreds of thousands of years, being accepted by the group meant survival. Being rejected, cast out, or seen as a threat by the people around you meant death. The brain didn't evolve to be liked. It evolved to detect social danger, fast, automatically, and with extreme sensitivity. And when it detects even a hint of possible rejection, it fires the same alarm system it would fire if you were standing in front of a predator. That alarm system is the amygdala. And in people with high social sensitivity, the amygdala is essentially calibrated to be trigger-happy. It fires before the conscious mind has time to evaluate whether the threat is real. This is why social anxiety feels so irrational, even to the people experiencing it. You know logically that nobody is staring at you. You know the conversation was fine. You know that one awkward pause didn't ruin everything. But that knowledge arrives too late. The amygdala already fired. The stress hormones are already in your bloodstream. The heart rate is already up. You can't think your way out of it in the moment because the thinking brain wasn't the first one to the scene. Now here's the part that most people don't realize. Social anxiety and social intelligence are not opposites. They tend to travel together. The same nervous system that makes you hyper-aware of how other people are feeling, that makes you pick up on subtle shifts in tone, on the slight tension in someone's smile, on the exact moment someone's interest starts to drift. That same system is also the one running the alarm. Your sensitivity to other people's emotional states is not separate from your anxiety about social situations. It is the same mechanism. You feel the room with unusual precision. You also feel the room with unusual precision. The people who genuinely don't care what others think are often the people who genuinely don't read what others are feeling either. The social intelligence and the social discomfort tend to come as a package. But knowing this doesn't make the anxiety easier to live with. So let's talk about what's actually maintaining it, because understanding the mechanism is the first step to breaking out of it. There's a psychological process called the self-focused attention loop that sits at the core of most social anxiety. When you enter a social situation and the alarm fires, your attention turns inward. Instead of focusing outward on the conversation and the people around you, your brain redirects toward monitoring yourself. How do I sound? How do I look? How am I coming across? This internal monitoring is exhausting, and it's also deeply counterproductive, because the more attention you direct toward performing and managing your impression, the less natural and genuine your behavior becomes. And other people notice, not consciously, not explicitly, but on a level of social intuition they can't quite name. They sense a slight stiffness, a slight distance, something slightly effortful. And this, ironically, produces the very response your anxious brain was afraid of. A slight social disconnection that confirms your fear. This is the loop. Anxiety produces self-monitoring. Self-monitoring produces awkwardness. Awkwardness produces more anxiety. And the loop tightens. The second mechanism maintaining social anxiety is called post-event processing. You know this one well. The social situation ends, but the analysis does not. For hours, sometimes days afterward, the brain reviews and replays selected moments from the interaction. And it does not review them neutrally. It selects for the moments that confirm the fear. The one sentence that came out wrong. The pause that lasted a beat too long. the joke that didn't land. The brain ignores the parts of the conversation that went well. It ignores the moments of genuine connection. It zooms in on the evidence for the verdict it has already decided on. I made a fool of myself. They don't really like me. I should have said something different. This post-event processing does not feel like irrational worrying. It feels like a thorough, responsible review of what happened. But it is not. It is a highly selective search for evidence of threat conducted by a system that has already decided the threat is real. The brain is not thinking clearly about the event. It is building a case. And that built case becomes the input for the next social situation, which is why social anxiety, without intervention, tends to grow rather than shrink over time. Every cycle of the loop adds another layer of evidence to the file. So how do you interrupt this? There are two core shifts that make the biggest difference, both of them backed by what psychology knows about how the attention and threat systems in the brain actually work. The first shift is attention redirection. The self-focused attention loop can only run when attention stays inward. The disruption is simple but takes consistent practice. Deliberately redirect your attention outward during social interactions. Not to manage your impression, not to monitor how the other person is receiving you, but to genuinely focus on them. What are they actually saying? What are they not saying? What seems to be going on for them beneath the surface of their words? When you shift attention toward the other person with genuine curiosity, two things happen. The self-monitoring loop loses the fuel it needs to keep running because you're no longer feeding it attention, and your behavior naturally becomes more present, more warm, more connected, which produces a genuinely different response from the people around you, which begins to gently challenge the evidence your anxious brain has been collecting. This doesn't mean performing interest, it means cultivating it. People who are genuinely curious about others are almost universally experienced as warm and engaging, regardless of how smooth or articulate their words are. The most socially magnetic quality is not confidence. It is attention. And attention is something you can redirect, even when your nervous system is alarmed. The second shift is changing how you process after social events. Instead of allowing post-event processing to run unchecked, start deliberately widening the review. Not to talk yourself into false positivity, but to review the actual event rather than the selected highlights of what went wrong. Ask yourself with the same seriousness you bring to analyzing the awkward moment. What went reasonably well? Was there a moment of genuine connection, even a brief one? Did anyone laugh? Did the conversation continue? Did it end on a reasonable note? The goal is not to convince yourself that everything was perfect. The goal is to give the anxious brain an accurate report rather than a curated case for the prosecution. Here's the deeper thing to understand about social anxiety, and it's the same thing that's true about most forms of anxiety. The problem is not that your brain is broken. The problem is that your brain is applying an extraordinarily powerful and sensitive survival system to a context it was not designed for. You are not weak. You are not flawed. You are, in a very real sense, running ancient hardware in a modern situation. The social world you move through every day does not pose the same threats your brain was designed to detect. But your brain does not fully know that yet. It is still scanning, still alert, still sending alarms for situations that a calmer part of you knows are not truly dangerous. The work is not to silence that scanner. The work is to gently, consistently update it, to show it through repeated experience and deliberate attention that the social world is not as dangerous as it has decided. That connection is possible, that people are more interested in their own experience than in judging yours, that surviving the room is not the goal, being present in it is. And that process takes time. It is not a switch you flip. It is a pattern you build, slowly, through small repeated moments of redirecting attention outward, of reviewing events fairly, of staying in situations the anxious brain wants to escape, of tolerating the discomfort long enough to collect different evidence. You have been carrying this for a long time. Most of the people in your life have no idea. The quiet internal running commentary, the replays, the analyses, the exhaustion of making every social interaction look effortless from the outside while managing a complex system on the inside. That is real work, and it takes a real toll. Understanding what your brain is actually doing does not make that work disappear. but it does change your relationship to it. You are not broken. You are not fundamentally flawed in some way that other people are not. You are a person with a highly sensitive system doing its best to keep you safe in a world that no longer requires the kind of vigilance it was built for. Teaching that system to rest is the work, and it is work worth doing.